Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Ruth. Today's tutorial is how to achieve a peplum top. A peplum top, I made this as a 360-degree flea. If you want to achieve more than that, just let me know in the comment section and I'll also be doing a tutorial on that. So let's get into the tutorial right away. Now to make our peplum, we need to do some calculations. So we'll start by imputing our blouse length. Our blouse length is 24. Then the half length, that's from the shoulder to the waistline, is 16 inches. So I'll be deducting my 24 inches, my total blouse length from I'll be deducting 16 inches from my total blouse length. So my total blouse length is 24. Right from my shoulder to my waist is 16. When you deduct 16 from 24, you have 8 inches left. So that 8 inches now will be my blouse length. Will be my peplum length. The 8 inches will be my peplum length. I hope you understand. If you can, please kindly zoom in to see what the calculations I'm doing, but if you can see it now, that's fine. So now my peplum length will be 8 inches. We'll go ahead now to impute our radius as well. To determine your radius, you want to divide 34. The 34 is my waist circumference. Please don't mix this up. Remember, our peplum will be sitting on our waist. So my waist is 34, and I'll be dividing that. I divided that 34 by 6.28. 6.28, which is the radius for getting a circumference, right? So 6.28, I'll use 6.28 to divide my 34, and whatever I have as my answer is what I'll be using for my radius. Now for that radius, if you want your peplum to have pleats at the waist, you can increase your radius. Let's say you have 4 inches as your radius. After dividing your waist circumference by 6.28, whatever you get, you can add to it. If you had 4 inches as your answer, you can add to it. You can increase it so that you can have what to use as pleats. All right, so I'll be making my calculations now. Remember, I told you that our peplum length is 8 inches and the radius is 5.5, and of course we'll be needing allowance for folding the peplum at the hem and also for joining it to the waistline. So I added allowance of 1.5 inches. So by the time you calculate your 8 inches peplum length, your 5.5 for radius, and your allowance of 1.5, you'll be getting your own answer. For mine, I got 15 inches. So this will be determining what I'll be folding to cut out the total peplum I need. All right, so I need 15 inches now to cut out my peplum. So now to cut out my peplum, I'll be folding my fabric from the yardage. All right, now for me to have enough. So remember what we calculated was 15, right? So I'll be folding my peplum into 2. I'll be folding my fabric into 2. Okay, I'm taking all my calculations at the wrong side of the fabric. So remember I mentioned the fact that you can add to your radius, you can increase it so you can have pleats, or you can make gathers with it. So for mine now, remember my radius is 5.5, but I added 1.5 inches to it to make it 7 inches. So that means now it will be altering the 15 inches I've gotten before. So which means now my peplum length is still constant, which is 8 inches. My radius is now changed from 5.5 to 7 inches because I added 1.5 to it, and of course my allowance is still intact. Now that means I'll be folding my fabric by 17 inches and not 15 inches anymore. All right, so for this now, you want to impute your 17 inches mark from your starting point. Impute your starting point. From your starting point, you want to measure 17 inches, and when you have that 17 inches again, I want you to measure another 17 inches. All right, if you don't get it this way, just multiply what you have. Once you're done, multiply it by 2. So for mine is 17 inches, I'll multiply it by 2 and I'll be having 34. So for my starting point, I'll mark up to 34 inches, then I'll divide my 34 into 2, which is 17. All right, so whatever rocks your boat, whatever way you understand this, that's what you should do. Now, so from that 17 inches mark, the middle mark, you want to start imputing 17 inches all round. You know the way we do it when we're young with compass. To get a circle, you just start from the midpoint and start measuring. Okay, so that's the same thing you'll be doing here. From that 17 inches mark, that's the middle of the first 17 inches and the starting point of the second 17 inches mark. Start from that point and measure 17 inches mark all round. So once you're done now, from the chalkings you made, you want to start cutting. When you start your cutting, you can make your 17 inches mark all round, but for mine, this is the arc I use to make it easier and to make sure that what I have is even. Once I get to that 17 inches mark and I'm done, the middle part, I will just fold the fabric from that 17 inches mark to meet up with the second 17 inches mark, as you can see. Then I will now continue my marking. Just make sure that it is on the chalked part. The starting point meets up with the ending point. So I'm done now and I've cut it out. This is what we have. Now let's go ahead now and mark our radius, cut out our radius where the half length of the blouse will be sitting on. So I just discovered that what I added actually as my pleats is 2.5 and not 1.5 as I earlier stated before. So which means that the radius will be cutting out is 7.5. okay, please, 7.5. all right, so I'll go ahead now and mark out my radius of 7.5 inches. So this is how you go about it. So to impute your radius of 7.5 inches, at the middle point there, you want to start to indicate where your 7.5 inches will be, and then you start imputing it. You are imputing it all around as well, just the same way we cut out the peplum, because you are trying to achieve a perfect circle. All right, so my own radius is 7.5. Depending on what you calculated for yours, then impute yours as well. So now once we are done, from that part now to I have 9.5 inches left. Remember, 8 inches is for my peplum length, and the remaining 1.5 I'll be using half inch to fold the down part. You can use a bias or you can use a lining. Then I'll be using half inch as well to join my peplum to my bodice. Okay, so I made it 1.5 just in case I ended up working with 7.5 inches or 7.5 inches on the other side. All right, so now by the time I calculate, I'll be seeing that I have more than enough. You're done cutting out your radius. You should have your waist of the waist circumference and also the radius if you added. So when I measured mine, I got 50, and remember that my waist circumference is just 34, right? So by the time I minus 50 from 34 from 50, I have 16 inches. So I have 16 inches to make pleats around my waistline width. All right, so now you also want to notch it as well. Then as well slit the part where your zip is going to be passing through. So now we are done with our peplum. Our peplum is ready. So now let's go ahead now and cut the upper bodies. Now for the upper bodies, I'll be cutting the back first, and for the back we'll be needing zip. So I'm imputing my zipper allowance. I made use of 1 inch for my zipper allowance, so I just imputed that 1 inch. Of course, my fabric was folded into 2 because I'm not cutting on a pattern, I'm cutting on my fabric directly. Now I'll be imputing on my measurement starting from that zipper allowance. My shoulder is 15 divided by 2 will be 7.5, and I'll be adding my half inch for joining it to the sleeve. Then from that part as well, from the middle part, we want to come in by 3 inches for our shoulder slope. Remember, our shoulder is not straight, we have a slanted shoulder, So I'll be going down by 1 inch, but because I'm not cutting on my pattern, I'll be going up again by ½ inch. So that means I came down by ½ inch. All right, by the time so from that part as well, you want to impute your chest line. My chest line is 8.5. I'll impute it again at the other side so that I can achieve a straight line. So my chest line is 8.5. I just made a straight line there. I'll also be imputing my shoulder to my bust measurements as well. So my shoulder to my bust is 10 inches, but I'll be imputing 10.5. Now, the reason why we are doing this is because remember we are not cutting it on a pattern. I'm cutting it on my fabric directly. So you want to ensure that you impute the ½ inch for joining the back and the front together at the shoulder part. So that's why I'm altering my measurements instead of imputing my exact 10 inches and using 10.5. All right. So for my under bust as well, my shoulder to my under bust is 14, but I'm also imputing 14.5. Okay. Then I have, of course, my shoulder to my waistline as well. So now back to our chest line. From the chest line there, you want to go in by 8 inches as well. That's I'm imputing my shoulder measurement that I imputed at the starting point. I'm imputing it there as well. We want to use this to get our armhole curve. So from the upper part, just make a straight line to the chest line. Once you've gotten that, divide from the beginning of the shoulder to your chest line, divide the result you have there into 2. So mine was 8.5. I divided it to 2 and I got 4.25. From that 4.25 mark, you want to go in by ½ inch. All right. Now from that ½ inch, connect a straight line to the shoulder and then use your curve to achieve a curve at that part. But we're doing this later on. Let's impute all our measurements firstly. So at the bust point, you want to impute your bust divided by 4, because remember we folded our fabric into 2. So you'll be imputing your bust point, your bust circumference. You'll be imputing your bust circumference divided by 4 at the bust point, and at the chest line as well. You'll be imputing your bust circumference divided by 4. Just add 0.25 to it. All right, for ease at that chest line. Then at the armhole as well, you want at the under bust as well, impute your under bust circumference divided by 4. At the waistline as well, impute your waist circumference divided by 4. Also note, because I'm cutting on my fabric directly, I'm imputing my sewing allowance as well. Now at the waistline, remember we'll be making a dart, so I'll be imputing the 1 inch for my dart at the waistline. So you want to cross check all your measurements. Be sure that at your bust point you have your bust circumference divided by 4. At the under bust you have your under bust circumference divided by 4. At the waistline as well, you have your waistline circumference divided by 4 plus your sewing allowances, and of course 1 inch for that at the waistline. So you want to connect from the chest line to the waistline like you see me do. All right. So once you're done now, you can now complete that curve we made at the armhole, and we are done with our back. You can also make use of your curve ruler to achieve that curve. Okay, so we are done with our back. We'll just impute our neckline and cut this out. So for my neckline, I'll be making use of 3 inches for the width, and I'll be making use of 1 inch for the depth. It's all depend on what you want. I want mine to be a high neckline. Okay, so once I'm done now, I'll just connect this with my freehand method. Of course, you can make use of your curve ruler as well. I'll just go ahead now and cut this out. I've imputed my sewing allowance, so if you have not, please make sure you impute your sewing allowance. All right, so I'll just go ahead now and cut out the back. So our back pattern now is ready. we'll be cutting the front now, and as well for the front we'll be imputing our upper body's measurements, which is 16 inches. From the shoulder to the waistline is 16 inches, and that's why I imputed there. So I want to make a straight line to have a box where I'll be imputing all my measurements. So from the shoulder as well, I'm going to impute my bust measurement from the shoulder to my bust, from the shoulder to my under bust. I'll be repeating this in 2 places so that I can easily achieve a straight line. Alright, so from the bust point you want to come up by 2 inches to achieve your chest line. So from my bust point I came up by 2 inches and I was able to achieve my chest line of 8.5 inches. Now I'll be marking a straight mark now to make all my markings visible. Alright, also know that because we are cutting the front bodies on our pattern, I won't be adding any sewing allowance to this. Okay, so from the middle point I'll be going in by 3 inches and I'll be imputing my shoulder measurement of 7.5. From that 7.5 I came down by 1.5 because it's the front and also because I'm cutting on my pattern. At the chest line as well, you want to impute that 7.5 again. That's your shoulder measurement divided by 2. Make a straight line like this. Then we'll connect from that 3 inches mark to the 1.5 inches mark we made to achieve our shoulder slope for the front. Now to achieve our armhole curve, you want to divide your measurements into 2. That's from your shoulder to your chest line into 2. From that middle point you want to go in by 0.75 because it's the front. So from that 0.75 mark, connect it with a straight mark to the shoulder. Alright, so we'll be achieving our curve, our measurements once we've imputed all our measurements. So for the bust, I imputed the 1/4 of my bust circumference. At the chest line, I imputed the 1/4 of my bust circumference and I added 0.25 to it. At the under bust as well, I imputed the 1/4 of my under bust circumference. At the waistline, I imputed the 1/4 of my waist circumference as well. So I connected from the chest line to the waist. Now go ahead now and achieve that armhole curve. I really love to do it this way so that my armhole curve can sit perfectly at my chest line. Alright, so now you can just go ahead and label this to help you know what you are working with per time. So I imputed my bust circumference, my under bust circumference and my waist. Now I'll be imputing our dart firstly. To achieve your own dart, I will advise that you measure your nipple to your nipple. For the measurement I'm working with, the nipple to the nipple is 4 inches, is 8 inches divided by 2 gave me 4 inches. So I imputed that 4 inches at the bust, at the under bust and at the waist to achieve a straight mark. Once I was done, at the waistline I came in by ½ inch on the dart leg. I came in by ½ inch on both sides. Then I connected it from that waistline to the bust. Okay, now I want to impute my bust dart. Remember, the shoulder, the back is shorter by 2 inches to the front. So now to achieve my bust dart, that's my nipple to nipple measurement of 4 inches. I'll come out by 1 inch. Alright, I'll come out by 1 inch. Then at the bust, where I imputed my bust measurement, I'll go down by 2 inches, which is the difference between my bust, my back and my front. Mine is 2 inches. If yours is 1 inch, if it's 1.5, then impute it at that point there. Alright, then you want to connect from that point like you see me do. Now we want to alter these measurements to get our bust here. Remember at the bust point, I imputed my 4-inch nipple to nipple measurement. I'll be deducting 1 inch from that 4 inch, which is 3 inches. I'll impute that at my under bust. That same 3 inches, I'll be imputing it at my waist measurement, but I'll be adding a quarter of an inch to it. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because my underbust is narrower than my waist. My underbust is 32, while the waist I'm working with is 34. But if you have the same measurement as your underbust and your waist measurement, I'll ask that you impute the same value at the bust and at the underbust and your waist. Okay, so from that 4 inches, you want to connect from your bust to your underbust and to your underbust to your waist. Now, to get our underbust tightening, I'll be making use of 2.5 inch. You can work with 2 inch, you can work with 1.5 inch, but I'm doing 2.5 inch to achieve my underbust tightening. So at that my underbust, I came in by 2.5. I came out by 2.5. At the waist as well, I came out by 2.5. Now connect from your underbust to your waist as you see me do, and with the use of your curve ruler or with your freehand method, you want to connect from your underbust to your bust. Okay, so we'll be imputing our armhole measurements now. From the chest line, you want to measure what you have. I have 9.5 there, which is a quarter of my bust circumference plus 0.25. Okay, so I measure from my chest line to the beginning of my shoulder, and whatever value you have there, you want to divide that by 2. So you can see me now, I divided mine into 2. Now that is the at that point, then now I'm going to go in by 1 inch upwards and also by 1 inch downwards to help me to achieve my armhole princess dart. There are so many methods to do this, but this is what I use and it works perfectly for me. All right, so now remember we came down by 1 inch. From that point you came down by 1 inch, connect it to the bust point, and the upper part, the one you came up by 1 inch as well, connect it again to the bust point. Just follow this closely, you get it. So because we are working on a Princess Bustier Dart, if we leave this pattern this way, by the time you are done joining, you have a shortage at that side panel. So at that side panel, like you see, I'm going to be adding 2.5 inch from where my armhole curve stopped, my initial armhole curve, that 2.5 inch we took out from the underbust and waistline. I'll be adding it back at this point. If you use this method, you won't be having a shortage at your armhole. So we want to this is going to now be our new armhole. All right, so if you do this method, by the time you are done joining, you won't be having any shortage at all, I promise you. So at that bust point as well, you can see there's a sharp corner there. You want to make sure that you take out all sharp corners because you don't want your bustier looking pointed once you are done sewing. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. Just follow me closely. That 2.5 inch we took out at the waist point, we are going to be imputing it back because it's going to be a give and take method. If you don't do this, by the time you are done sewing, your measurements will not be accurate. So we'll be shading out the parts that we don't need now so that we'll be able to cut out what we need perfectly well. Princess Bustier cuts can be confusing, but if you follow this method, I promise you will get it. Now, just to be on the safe side, before cutting out, we'll be cross-checking our measurements to ensure we have what we need. Now, if you look at what we have here, before adding the 2.5 inches, I tried to check my measurements and I was short of 2.5, which is that same 2.5 inches which we've deducted here. So I'll go ahead now and add that 2.5 inches back. You want to check even at the bust point as well. I have like an half inch. I went ahead as well and I added that half inch as well. Okay, so I'll be connecting this. If you look at this might look funny to you because the measurements what we have here is looking a bit funny, but this is the measurements I am working with. By the time I'm working with a waist of maybe 29 and with a bust of 34, it will look proper. Okay, but this is what I'm working with and that is why it's looking this way. When you're working with a slimmer waist measurement with a maybe like a moderate bust, it might look much more better. So depending on the measurement you are working with, will determine the shape you'll be getting once you impute all your measurements. Okay, so I'm done now. I'll also cross check once again to be sure that it's accurate. Then I'll just go ahead and cut out. Once you're cutting out, be careful not to make mistake. You'll be cutting at the part where we've altered all our measurements. You can see I shaded mine. You also want to make sure that all the parts that you've altered are the ones you are cutting out, and you're cutting out on the new line. Okay, once we are done with this now, I'll show you what it looks like. Then I also will be closing our bust darts. All right, so now we are done cutting, and this is the front, our Princess Bustier cut. So I'll be placing this now on my fabric to cut out. Now before we cut this out, we'll be closing our bust dart. To close our bust dart, we want to firstly ensure that the bust dart is getting to the ending of our pattern. All right, now you want to go ahead as well. That 1 inch that we came in by before we imputed our bust dart, you want to slash it open just at that 1 inch so that your bust dart can rest perfectly well. Now watch what I'll be doing here. At that my bust part, I'll be making a crease line. Now just easily overlap it at the ending of my bust dart to close the bust dart. So once you're done now, what we have left is to place our pattern on our fabric and add our sewing allowance. Remember, we did not add the sewing allowance to the pattern, so we're just adding our sewing allowance. I'll be adding ½ inch for joining of the upper bodice to my peplum, and also be adding ½ inch by the side as well to join the side pattern and the middle pattern of my Princess Bustier Dart. You want to repeat the same thing at the side dart as well. At the upper part, you want to also add your ½ inch. So just go ahead and add your ½ inch. Also know that you can use 1 inch, but whatever it is you're adding as your allowance, you must also be sewing it down by that value as well. All right, so I'm using ½ inch. I'll also be using my ½ inch also to sew. At the side pattern where my sewing allowance is, that's where I'll be adding my front and my back, joining my front and my back together. I'll be adding 2 inches for sewing allowance. Depends on you as well. You can use 1 inch, you can use 1.5, whatever it is you want to use. So I added ½ inch all round, but at the side where I'll be joining my front and my back, I added 2 inch. Okay, so I'll just go ahead now and cut out my pattern, and my front pattern is ready. We're making progress, right? So once I'm done with all my cuttings as well, at the bust point I'll be making a notch there. At the under bust as well, I'll be making a notch. I'll repeat the same thing at the side panel as well. This will help me when I'm joining to make sure that my bust point matches up with the bust point of the other one. Now for the neckline, I made the neckline width of 3 inches and depth of 3.5 inches. I went ahead and cut this out, and we are done with our pattern. Now we are done with the easiest part of it. This is what it looks like, and this is what it should look like once you're done. So now I'll go ahead to sew this down. Now we'll go ahead to sew this down now. To sew it down, we'll be starting with our peplum. Our peplum, firstly, you want to cut the exact lining of your peplum. To join your peplum, you'll be placing your lining on the right side of your fabric. Okay, so you want to pin this down and sew it down by ½ inch. Once I'm done sewing it down by ½ inch, this is what it looks like. Now to join the peplum at the side, because I'll be turning it in, I will be folding it by half. I'll be folding it up by. I'll be pulling it up by 1 inch. I'll pull it up by 1 inch. Look at what I just did now. I just pulled it up by 1 inch. You want to check your measurements to be sure that what you have there is not more than 1 inch. If you are holding it in by 1 inch, no matter how many times the fabric is washed, the lining will not be showing outside. This is just what it helps. Number one, it helps with neat finishing, and number two as well, you don't have that scenario whereby you're rocking your outfit and the lining is showing underneath. Okay, so you want to pull your lining up by 1 inch. You make a fabric to come in by 1 inch, then I will go ahead and sew this down by ½ inch. Okay, once I'm done sewing, I'll repeat the same thing on the other side of the peplum. Once I've done, this is what it looks like. I'll just turn this out now and show you what I have. This is what I was able to achieve. I've sewn down the hem of the peplum with my lining. I've also sewn down the sides. Okay, so this is what I have. So I want to take out the excess lining. Since I've taken in 1 inch of my fabric, so I'll be taking out 1 inch, the excess left, that's that 1 inch. So you want to just straighten out your peplum, lay it flat on your table, and then take out the excess. All right, you can pin it down before you take it to a sewing machine and sew down. I held it down by ½ inch, then I trimmed out the excess. So now this is what my peplum looks like once I was done. Let's head to the back. For the back now, I've added an interface to my fabric for stability. I'll be taking in the dart now. I want to take the dart inside, so I'll also be repeating the same method on the lining as well to achieve a neat finishing. So from the shoulder, you want to come down to your chest line, then go down again by ½ inch. The ½ inch is because I'll be joining it to my front bodies as well. Okay, so from your chest line there, the mark we made, you want to take in your nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus your 1 inch for the seam, for the zip allowance. So I'll be imputing it. My nipple to nipple is 8 inch divided by 2, that's 4. Okay, so I'll be imputing that 4 inch there plus my 1 inch for zip, that gives me 5 inch. So I'll be taking in my dart from my waist ½ inch, then I'll just narrow it down to that chest line. Now this is what it looks like. I've also repeated the same thing on the lining as well. You also want to repeat the same thing on the other side of your back bodies. All right, so now I'll be turning the fabric with my lining, the right side of my fabric facing the right side of my lining. Yes, since I've held my dart, my lining now has the right side and the wrong side. Okay, so this is me pinning everything down. I'll be sewing down the zip allowance side by 1/4 inch or ½ inch. Whatever it is I use, whatever value I have left is what I'll be holding, fusing my zip into my outfit with. Okay, so I've also pinned down the sides as well because I'll be sewing that down as well by ½ inch. The neckline as well, I'm going to be sewing it down by ½ inch as well. So I'll go ahead and sew this now and show you what it looks like. So now I'm done. I've held everything down by ½ inch, the zip allowance side, the neckline, and the sides. Once I turn this out, I'll repeat the same thing on the other side of my back bodies. Then I'll go ahead and iron and press everything down. Okay, so let's sew the front. For the front now, you want to ensure that the notches on the bust and on the under bust matches up with the notch on the side pattern. Okay, so this is me just trying to showing you how you'll be sewing this down. You want to sew it with ease. If this is your first time sewing a Princess Bustier Dart, I'll ask that you sew it carefully because of the curve. Okay, so you want to ensure that the notch on the side pattern aligns with the notch on the middle pattern. Okay, if you do this correctly, your pattern will match up at the ending. So you also want to repeat the exact thing you did on the other side. So notch by notch, make sure that the notch on the bust matches with the notch on the under bust, and just easily walk around your curve and then sew it down. Okay, so I'll repeat the same thing on the lining as well. I'll also be turning the neckline of the front and also the sides, just like we did for the back. Okay, so now once I've done this, what I achieved, I've turned the neckline, I've turned the side as well. Can you see how neat it looks? Yes, this is how your work should look. Okay, very neat. So go ahead now and notch the middle part of your front, like I'm showing you now, the middle part of the front, so that I'll be able to couple the back bodies and the front bodies together now to attach our peplum to it. So place the right side of your back facing the right side of your front together. You can see that the sides match up, right? So you pin this down. You also want to repeat the same thing on the other side as well. The right side of the back facing the right side of the front. Okay, pin this down as well. So we'll be imputing our measurements now. So since we already have our front and our back bodies together, we'll be imputing half of this measurement. You impute your shoulder to your bust, your shoulder to your under bust, and of course our waist. Now for the bust part, remember that we've altered the front fabric, so you have to stretch it out like you see me do in order to impute your bust measurements. So you can impute the right circumference. Okay, so at this point you'll be dividing your circumference by 2 and not by 4. Okay, so I'll impute my bust circumference divided by 2. Then whatever the value I have left, I'll divide it by 2 again like you see me do. Then I'll impute half of that measurement on one side, then half of it on the other side as well. Once I'm done, I'll repeat the same thing again. I'll take my shoulder to my bust, shoulder to my under bust, and of course shoulder to my waist measurements. I'll stretch it out again, impute, take out my measurements. Can you see I'm stretching it out? You want to impute the your bust circumference divided by 2 there, then whatever value you have left, divide it by 2. Repeat the same thing at the under bust as well. I would have said you should just impute 1 inch at the side, since the sewing allowance I added was 2 inch, but no, remember it was from that sewing allowance that we used in turning our fabric and our lining. Okay, so you need to be sure about the measurements you are imputing. So that's why we are retaking our measurements this way. Okay, repeat the same thing on the waist, on the under bust, repeat the same thing on the waist as well. So once you're done doing this, you want to take it to your sewing machine and sew this down. All right, you are sewing on the chocklings you made. So now I'm done sewing. I've coupled my front bodies and my back bodies together. Now I'm taking my measurements to be sure I have the accurate measurements before placing my peplum. Remember my waist circumference is 34, and I'll be needing 1 inch for the joining of the zipper, half inch on one side and half inch on the other side. So that's 1 inch. So that means I need 34 plus 1 inch, which means I need 35 inches at that waist circumference, and I have my 35 inches there. So now this is my peplum. I've gone ahead to iron my peplum. So I'll be attaching this flay now to the waistline. So this is what you need to do: fold your peplum into 2, notch it, and also fold it again by 4 and notch it as well. This will help you to distribute the pleats evenly. So each notch will be at a designated place. Okay, so this is how we are going to be doing this now. The middle notch, we are going to be placing it at the middle point. That's the middle point of the front. Okay, but let's start from the beginning. So the first one, we'll be placing the right side of the flay on the right side of our upper bodies. Okay, you want to pin this down so this lays, this you'll be able to work with it with ease while you are sewing. So the beginning of the flay, you place it at the beginning of each. Then the first notch, you'll be placing it where the front and the back bodies meets up. Okay, now the next notch, you want to place it at the middle point. Now this is what the pleats you have left, so this will help you to divide to distribute the pleats evenly. Can you see how my flay is standing? If you turn it perfectly, you should have this same effect as well. So the next notch, I'll be placing it at the middle point, and also you have the choice to decide if you want to make it as pleats or gathers. Then as well, our third notch, I placed it where the front and the back meet as well. So now this is me cross checking what I've done to make sure that my notches match. You want to make use of notches here so that you don't have the pleats evenly distributed on one side of the peplum. You want it to be even on all sides of the peplum. Okay, so this is me pinning it down as well on the right side of the right side of the peplum, facing the right side of our bodice. Okay, so you want to take this to your sewing machine. You can make it as gathers, you can make it as splits, whatever it is. The ball is in your court, like they say. So you decide whatever it is you want to do with this. You can make it can make the pleats face, which is known as kissing pleats. You can make it as gathers, tiny pleats, whatever it is you want to achieve. The ball is in your court since there's pleats on your flea. But if you don't have any pleats, that means you are just working with the accurate measurements you have. So I've gone ahead to sew this down by 1/2 inch, and now this is what I have once I was done. So what we have left now is to join our zip to the peplum. Okay, so I will be joining our zip, remember, with just 1/2 inch. So you want to take your zip, the right side of the zip will be facing the right side of your fabric. Yes, your zipper has the right side, that's the part where the opening will be done. Okay, so you want to ensure that you pin this down. You can just leave like 1/2 inch so that your zip does not pop out from your flay. You can just leave 1/2 inch like this, then just pin it down. Okay, pin it down and make sure that it's looking neat. Once you're done, you repeat the same thing on the other side as well. Just pin it down by 1/2 inch. Make sure it's no more than 1/2 inch so that your measurements will be accurate. Once I'm done now, I'll repeat the same thing on the other side again. I'll pin the zipper on the other side and I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew. Once I'm done, I'll show you what it looks like. If you found this tutorial video helpful, give this video a thumbs up, like it, subscribe if you've not, also share it with your friends and your families. Yes, those you know will be needing this video as well, this tutorial as well. All right, so I've gone ahead to sew down my zipper and this is what it looks like. I made sure that I used my 1/2 inch, which is just my sewing allowance, so it does not affect my waist. You want to make sure that that part as well is even. We check your measurements and make sure it is accurate. So we're joining our shoulder now. For the shoulder, I'll be showing you two methods you can join your shoulder. So whatever works perfectly for you, please use that. Okay, so the first method, I'll be sandwiching the front bodice in between the fabric of the back bodice and the lining of the back bodice, like you can see. You want to make sure that you do this carefully so that the part that part where the front bodice and the back bodice meet is even. Okay, so once you are done, just pin this down. So I'll be showing you the second method now of joining your shoulder. The second method, you want to open up the fabric and the lining separately, like you see me do. Open up for the fabric and the lining for the front as well. So now you want to place the right side of your fabric facing the right side of your fabric for the front, facing the right side of the fabric of the back. Can you see? At the neckline, you want to make sure it is even. Pin this down. We pin the same thing on the lining as well. The right side of the lining for the back, place it on the right side of the lining for the front. Once you're done, pin it out as well. So to join this, you want to start from the neckline where the fabric starts. You want to sew it out so that if you have any excess, it will be on the outside part. We start from, to sew the lining as well, you want to start where the lining matches up. Start from the neckline and sew it out to the shoulder. Okay, this way it will also make sure that the part where your fabric and your lining meets does not mix up. Okay, so I'll go ahead and sew this down with any method I prefer. Okay, the two method works perfectly well. I'm just showing you whichever one you just try out the two method and see which one you achieved with ease, so you can just go ahead and continue using that method. So now this is what I have once I was done. Look at how neat it sits on the lining, so neat. So you want to make sure that your work is as neat as that as well. So now this is what we'll be stopping for this tutorial, in order not to have a lengthy video. Check the description box for the link on how to draft, cut and sew this flutter sleeve on this my beautiful peplum top. Okay, so I'll be dropping the link on the description box. Subscribe to the channel, give this tutorial video a thumbs up, turn on post notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. See you on the next one. Bye.